Maya Chen stood at the entrance of the Interstellar Academy of Natural Sciences, her reflection distorted in the quantum blast doors that shifted between states of matter. The acceptance letter in her hand still felt surreal, the first human ever admitted to the galaxy's most prestigious xenobiology program. She took a deep breath, adjusted her environmental suit's settings, and stepped through the threshold. The atrium buzzed with life forms from across the known universe. Crystalline beings floated past on electromagnetic fields, while gaseous entities swirled within containment bubbles. A group of silicon-based students clicked and chittered as they parsed quantum equations in the air before them. Maya felt every pair of eyes, sensory organ, or electromagnetic receptor turned toward her as she made her way to the registration desk. "Specimen designation?" asked the administrative AI, its holographic interface flickering with patterns that represented curiosity. "Human. Maya Chen from Earth," she replied, standing straighter. "I'm the new exchange student." The AI's patterns shifted to what Maya's cultural training had taught her was amusement. "Ah yes, the carbon-based bike-doll from the Class 3 world. Welcome to the Academy. Please proceed to Orientation Hall Delta for atmospheric calibration and species interaction protocols." Maya had prepared herself for the patronizing tone. Earth's classification as a Class 3 world, deemed evolutionarily stable with minimal environmental challenges, had always rankled her. She'd grown up in Malaysia, where her parents ran a wildlife sanctuary, and knew firsthand just how challenging Earth's environment could be. The orientation hall hummed with the chatter of new students. Maya found herself seated between a methane-breathing cloud of sentient bacteria and what appeared to be a living quantum probability field. The orientation leader, a towering insectoid being named Professor Xetal, began the session with what they probably thought was an encouraging speech. "Welcome, young minds from across the galaxy. Here at the Academy, we celebrate the vast diversity of life. From the plasma storms of the Carina Nebula to the quantum realms of the Sagittarius Arm, each of your worlds represents a unique evolutionary path." The professor's compound eyes fixed on Maya. "And yes, even the more quaint biospheres have their place in our studies." A ripple of what passed for laughter among the various species spread through the hall. Maya kept her face neutral, though her hands clenched slightly in her lap. She'd expected this, the subtle condescension, the assumption that Earth was some backwater planet with simple life forms. Let them think that for now. The day progressed with a series of lectures on xenobiology basics, though Maya noticed that all the examples of advanced evolutionary traits came from other worlds. Earth's species were mentioned only in passing, usually as examples of early-stage development. During the lunch break, she found herself surrounded by curious classmates. "Is it true that humans still require regular periods of unconsciousness to function?" asked Zix 427, a being composed of living crystal matrices. Their structure sparkled with what Maya had learned to recognize as barely contained superiority. "We call it sleep," Maya replied, "and yes, we do." "Fascinating," hummed Kithrix, a student who existed as a cloud of networked nanomachines. "Such an inefficient use of temporal resources. Though I suppose for a species from a Class 3 world, it's quite remarkable you've achieved spaceflight at all." Maya was saved from responding by the afternoon announcement that echoed through the Academy's halls. Professor Xetal's voice reverberated through multiple dimensional frequencies. "Attention all first-year xenobiology students. This term's final project has been decided. Each student will present on their homeworld's most impressive species, a demonstration of evolutionary achievement and natural adaptation." The hall erupted in excited discussions. Maya heard snippets about plasma-breathing leviathans, silicon-based predators that could phase through solid matter, and beings that existed simultaneously across multiple timelines. Zix 427 crystalline form vibrated with anticipation. "My presentation on the stellar worms of Proxima Beta will certainly set the standard," they chimed. "They can consume entire gas giants, you know." "What will you present on, Maya?" Perhaps those amusing felines your species keeps as companions. Maya smiled, thinking of the footage stored in her quantum tablet. Years of recordings from her parents' sanctuary, particularly of their hippopotamus rehabilitation program. Oh, I have something in mind. Something that might challenge your perspective on Class 3 worlds. Really? Kithrix's nanites formed what approximated a skeptical expression. Do tell. I think I'll keep it a surprise, Maya replied, her smile widening slightly. But I will say this. Sometimes the most dangerous things in the universe are the ones you underestimate. As she headed to her assigned quarters that evening, Maya began composing a message to her parents requesting specific footage from the sanctuary. Let her classmates think Earth was simple and safe. In a few weeks, they'd learn why humanity's homeworld had produced a species capable of reaching the stars, not despite its challenges, but because of them. The message sent, Maya started organizing her research materials. She had decades of incident reports, territorial statistics, and behavioral studies to sort through. Somewhere in her family's archives was the perfect footage. The day 3 full-grown hippos had overturned a reinforced research vessel, like it was made of paper. That should make for an interesting start to her presentation. The Academy might think Earth was just another Class 3 world, but they were about to learn that evolution had many ways of creating formidable species. Sometimes the most dangerous creatures weren't the ones that breathed plasma or bent spacetime. Sometimes they were the ones that looked deceptively peaceful until you got too close to their territory. Maya glanced at her reflection in the quantum glass window of her quarters, watching as it shifted and rippled with the material's strange properties. She couldn't help but grin. The Academy was about to get a lesson in why assumptions about simple worlds could be deadly mistakes, and she, Maya Chen from Earth, would be the one to teach it. The weeks leading up to the xenobiology presentations transformed the Academy into a competitive arena of interstellar one-upmanship. Students from across the galaxy worked to outdo each other with increasingly impressive specimens from their homeworlds. Maya watched it all with quiet amusement from her usual spot in the quantum library, surrounded by holographic displays of Earth's wildlife data. Another late study session, Maya. The voice came from Professor Ilzara, a bioluminescent entity who taught advanced evolutionary theory. Her form cast a gentle blue glow over Maya's research materials. I must admit, I'm curious about your choice of subject matter. Most of these texts seem to focus on herbivores. Maya nodded, gesturing to a three-dimensional projection of a hippopotamus skeleton. I've been comparing their bite force to other species across known space. The results are quite interesting. The professor's light patterns shifted to what Maya had learned to recognize as concern. My dear, while I appreciate your unique approach, perhaps you should consider presenting on something more traditionally impressive. Earth's great cats, perhaps. At least they're predators. Thank you, Professor, but I think I'll stick with my original choice. Maya pulled up another hologram, this one showing territorial behavior statistics. Sometimes the most dangerous things in nature aren't the obvious predators. After Ilzara departed, Maya returned to her compilation of footage. Her parents had outdone themselves, sending her decades' worth of hippopotamus observations, including several incidents that had never made it into official reports. The recording she was currently studying showed a 3-ton male easily keeping pace with a speedboat, its massive form cutting through the water with deceptive grace. Still working on your little Earth project. Zix 427's crystalline form materialized nearby, refracting light in patterns that suggested smugness. I just finished my preliminary presentation on the stellar worms. Professor Xetel said it was one of the most impressive demonstrations they'd seen in cycles. Congratulations, Maya replied, not looking up from her work. I'm sure it was very impressive. The holovids of them, consuming gas giants, really drove home the point about superior evolutionary development. Zix continued, their crystal lattice structure vibrating with pride. Kithrix's presentation on quantum phase predators is scheduled for tomorrow. When are you presenting? I'm scheduled for last. Maya finally looked up, offering a small smile. Professor Xetel thought it would be good to end with an example from a Class 3 world for perspective. Zix's crystalline form flickered with what might have been pity. Well, we can't all come from worlds with impressive megafauna. I'm sure whatever you've chosen will be educational in its own way. As Zix departed, Maya received a new data packet from her parents. She opened it to find footage from just last week. A bull hippopotamus demonstrating exactly why the sanctuary needed to upgrade their reinforced fencing yet again. Perfect. The next few days brought a parade of increasingly spectacular presentations. Kithrix's quantum-phase predators drew gasps from the audience as they demonstrated how the creatures could exist in multiple states of matter simultaneously. A student from the Andromeda Galaxy showcased beings that could manipulate gravitational fields as naturally as humans breathed. Each presentation seemed designed to push the boundaries of what life could achieve. Maya took careful notes throughout each session, paying particular attention to the statistics everyone used to quantify their creature's capabilities. Bite force, speed, territorial aggression. She was building a comparative database that would make her own presentation all the more impactful. The day before her scheduled presentation, Maya found herself in Professor Xetel's office for a final review. The insectoid professor's antennae twitched as they examined her preliminary materials. Ms. Chen, while I appreciate your enthusiasm, I must question your choice of subject matter. The purpose of this assignment is to showcase the pinnacle of evolutionary achievement from our respective worlds. With respect, Professor, that's exactly what I'm doing. Maya pulled up her comparative analysis. Would you be interested in seeing how hippopotamus territorial behavior statistics compare to the aggressive display patterns of the stellar worms? The professor's compound eyes flickered with multiple emotions. Ms. Chen, while I understand your desire to represent your world well, there's no shame in acknowledging that some biospheres are simply more advanced than others. Earth's classification as a Class 3 world is not a judgment, merely a scientific fact. Perhaps, Maya replied, keeping her voice carefully neutral, we should wait for tomorrow's presentation before drawing final conclusions about Earth's classification. That evening, as Maya made final adjustments to her presentation materials, she received an unexpected visitor. Kithrix's nanite cloud formed in her doorway, taking on a vaguely humanoid shape. I hope I'm not interrupting, they said, their voice emanating from the collective nanites. I wanted to, well, offer some advice. There's been quite a bit of discussion about your upcoming presentation. Oh, Maya continued her work, hiding a smile. Some of us are concerned that you might be setting yourself up for embarrassment. There's no shame in presenting something modest from a Class 3 world. We would understand. Maya finally looked up, meeting Kithrix's approximation of eyes. Tell me something, Kithrix. In all your studies of Earth's biosphere, did you ever wonder why humans developed such a robust fight-or-flight response? Why we evolved to be so aware of our surroundings, so quick to recognize potential threats? I assumed it was a primitive survival mechanism, given your world's limited challenges. Tomorrow, Maya said, turning back to her work, I'm going to show you exactly what kind of challenges shaped our evolution, and why assuming something is harmless just because it's herbivorous might be the last mistake someone ever makes. As Kithrix departed, Maya pulled up her opening footage, a peaceful scene of hippopotamuses lounging in still water, looking for all the world like gentle giants taking a lazy afternoon swim. The perfect setup for what would follow. Tomorrow, she thought, the Academy would learn why humans never took anything at face value, why we developed tools and technology, why we learned to be so cautious yet so adaptable. Tomorrow, they would understand that sometimes the most dangerous things in the universe were the ones that didn't look dangerous at all. The Academy's main lecture hall hummed with anticipation on presentation day. Maya sat quietly in the front row, watching as her classmates shifted and swirled in their various forms of existence. The massive quantum display screen behind Professor Xetel's podium rippled with residual energy from the previous presentation on plasma-breathing space whales. And finally, Professor Xetel announced, their mandibles clicking with what sounded suspiciously like resigned amusement. We conclude our xenobiology presentations with Ms. Chen's examination of an Earth species. Please remember to maintain appropriate academic decorum, regardless of the subject matter. Maya stood and made her way to the podium, her quantum tablet connecting seamlessly with the display system. She caught Zix 427's crystalline form vibrating with barely contained mirth, while Kethrix's nanites had arranged themselves into what appeared to be a sympathetic expression. "Thank you, Professor," Maya began, her voice steady. "Today, I'd like to introduce you to one of Earth's most remarkable species, Hippopotamus amphibius." The display filled with serene footage of hippos wallowing in calm waters, their bulky forms seemingly peaceful and lazy. "Ah, how quaint," came a whisper from somewhere in the audience, followed by poorly suppressed tittering. These herbivorous mammals spend most of their days submerged in water to maintain their body temperature and protect their sensitive skin from the sun. Maya continued, letting the peaceful imagery lull her audience. An average adult weighs between 1,500 to 3,000 kilograms, roughly equivalent to 0.3 stellar mass units in Academy measurements. She noticed several students beginning to fidget or lose interest. Perfect. Time to shake things up. Now let's discuss territorial behavior. The peaceful scene on the display suddenly shifted to high-speed footage of a hippopotamus pursuing a reinforced research vessel. The massive animal was keeping pace with the boat's emergency thrust, its bulk cutting through the water with terrifying efficiency. Hippopotamuses can reach speeds of 30 kilometers per hour in water and on land, despite their size. Their territorial aggression knows no bounds. They will attack anything they perceive as a threat, regardless of size or technological advancement. The audience's collective attention snapped back. Maya brought up a comparison chart showing bite force measurements across known species. A hippopotamus's bite force measures at 12,600 kilopascals, surpassing that of several predatory species we've seen presented today, including the famous stellar worms of Proxima beta. Zix 427's crystalline form stopped vibrating, their structure taking on a distinctly rigid appearance. "But surely," interrupted Professor Ulzara, her bioluminescence flickering with confusion, "as herbivores, they only use this capability defensively." Maya's response was to switch to new footage, a hippo casually biting a hovering research drone in half. Hippopotamuses kill approximately 500 humans per year in Africa alone. They will actively pursue perceived threats for hundreds of meters, on land or in water. Traditional Earth vehicles, even those reinforced for wildlife research, offer minimal protection against a determined hippopotamus. The lecture hall had gone completely silent. Maya brought up a new holographic display showing a hippopotamus skeleton, highlighting its massive jaw structure and robust musculature. Despite weighing up to 3 metric tons, they can leap completely out of the water when agitated. Their skin secretes a natural sunscreen that also has antibiotic properties, making them highly resistant to injury. And yes, while they are herbivores, they will occasionally engage in cannibalism when resources are scarce. She paused to let that sink in, noting with satisfaction that several of her gaseous classmates had contracted into tighter, more defensive formations. But perhaps the most remarkable thing about hippopotamuses is their impact on their ecosystem. They're what we call ecosystem engineers, capable of altering entire river systems through their behavior. A single pod can move tons of sediment daily, literally reshaping their environment to suit their needs. Maya brought up her final piece of footage, a full pod of hippopotamuses defending their territory against a pride of lions. The massive herbivores worked with coordinated precision, their bulk belying their speed as they drove the predators away with devastating efficiency. In conclusion, Maya said, keeping her voice professionally neutral despite the growing discomfort evident in her audience, "I would argue that the hippopotamus represents a perfect example of how evolutionary pressures on Earth have produced species that defy conventional classification. They demonstrate that being an herbivore doesn't mean being passive, that size doesn't limit agility, and that sometimes the most dangerous creatures are the ones you least expect. The silence that followed was profound. Professor Xetel's compound eyes had widened to their maximum aperture, their antennae completely still for the first time since Maya had met them. "Ms. Chin," they finally managed, their voice unusually quiet, "are you suggesting that this species exists on your supposedly Class 3 world alongside your civilization?" "Oh yes, Professor. In fact, my parents run a sanctuary where we study and protect them. Would you like to see the footage from last week, when one decided to test our new reinforced barriers? The engineering team is still trying to figure out how it managed to bend the quantum alloy supports." K'thrix's nanites had formed into what appeared to be a stunned face. "Your species developed spaceflight technology while sharing a planet with these creatures." Maya smiled. "Actually, hippopotamuses are considered only moderately dangerous by Earth standards. Would you like to hear about our saltwater crocodiles? Or perhaps the inland taipan? We could discuss box jellyfish toxicity levels, or maybe the surprisingly complex hunting strategies of orcas." The lecture hall erupted into chaos as students began frantically accessing Earth's biological databases, their previous dismissal of the simple Class 3 world rapidly transforming into horrified fascination. Maya gathered her materials, catching Professor Xetel hurriedly composing what appeared to be an urgent message to the Galactic Classification Board. As she headed back to her seat, she passed Zix 427, whose crystalline form had taken on a distinctly pale hue. "Still think Earth's biosphere is unimpressive?" she asked quietly. Zix's only response was a faint crystalline chiming that sounded remarkably like a whimper. The days following Maya's presentation transformed the Academy's atmosphere dramatically. Students who had previously glided or floated past her with casual indifference now gave her a wide berth in the corridors. The Quantum Library's Earth Biology section, once largely ignored, had become the most accessed database in the facility. Maya found Professor Xetel waiting outside her quantum mechanics class 3 days after the presentation. The insectoid professor's antennae twitched with barely contained excitement. "Ms. Chin, the Academy Board has reached a rather unprecedented decision. Your presentation has prompted a complete review of Earth's classification status. More importantly, they've authorized the first-ever xenobiology field trip to your planet." Maya blinked in surprise. "A field trip? To Earth?" "Yes, under proper safety protocols, of course. The board feels that first-hand observation of these hippopotamuses would be invaluable for updating our understanding of Class 3 world evolution. Your parents' sanctuary would be the perfect controlled environment for such a study." As Maya processed this information, K'thrix's nanite cloud materialized nearby, having apparently overheard the conversation. "We're actually going to Earth to see these creatures in person. Participation is voluntary, of course," Professor Xetel added quickly, their mandibles clicking nervously. "Given the unexpected danger level, we understand if some students prefer to study from a distance." Word of the planned field trip spread through the Academy like a quantum cascade. Maya found herself bombarded with questions from classmates who had suddenly developed an intense interest in Earth's wildlife. Even Zix 427, despite their best efforts to maintain their crystalline dignity, could be seen researching Earth's atmospheric conditions for crystal matrix compatibility. The preparation meeting filled the Academy's largest lecture hall. Professor Xetel, along with a team of safety specialists, outlined the extensive precautions being planned for the visit. Each student will be equipped with personal force field generators calibrated to withstand impacts up to 15,000 kilopascals. The safety chief explained, their holographic form flickering with emphasis. "Additionally, we've developed specialized hover platforms that should maintain a safe distance from any territorial displays." Maya raised her hand. "You might want to increase the force field strength. The impact force measurements in my presentation were averages. We've recorded significantly higher spikes during mating season." A ripple of nervous energy passed through the assembled students. The safety chief's hologram flickered rapidly as they made adjustments to their calculations. We've also analyzed the chemical composition of Earth's atmosphere and water systems, another specialist added. Protective measures have been designed for all student physiologies. Though I must admit, the presence of such high levels of dihydrogen monoxide is concerning. That's water, Maya interjected. We drink it. The shocked silence that followed was broken only by the sound of someone's gravity stabilizer shorting out in distress. The next few weeks were filled with intensive preparation. Maya helped review safety protocols, explaining Earth concepts that the Academy's advanced technology had somehow never accounted for. Yes, the ground could be soft and unstable near water. No, you couldn't simply phase through a charging hippopotamus. Their mass affected multiple spatial dimensions. Yes, they needed to account for something called mud. Finally, the day of departure arrived. The Academy's most advanced research vessel, the Stellar Seeker, had been modified specifically for Earth conditions. Maya watched as her classmates filed aboard, each encased in their personal protective equipment that made them look more prepared for a quantum singularity exploration than a visit to a wildlife sanctuary. I still can't believe we're doing this, Thrix commented, their nanites clustered tightly within a reinforced containment field. My probability calculations suggest this is either the most brilliant or most foolish academic expedition in Academy history. Don't worry, Maya assured them, checking the vessel's Earth atmospheric simulation settings. As long as everyone follows the safety protocols, we should be fine. Though we might want to warn Professor Lzura about bioluminescence near the water at night. It tends to attract attention. The journey to Earth was filled with last-minute research and safety briefings. Maya couldn't help but smile as she watched her classmates poring over detailed analyses of hippopotamus behavior patterns with the same intensity they usually reserve for quantum physics problems. As the Stellar Seeker entered Earth's atmosphere, Maya sent a message ahead to her parents at the sanctuary. Arriving with 23 Academy students and staff, all equipped with protective fields and hover platforms. Please ensure Bertha's pod is visible from the reinforced observation area, but maybe don't mention the incident with the last observation platform. The ship's sensors began registering Earth's biosphere, sending cascades of data through the onboard systems. Maya heard Zix 427's crystalline form chiming in distress as they processed the sheer variety of life forms detected. This is supposed to be a Class 3 world, they whispered, their structure vibrating with nervous energy. There are more potentially dangerous species in this one region than on my entire home planet. The Stellar Seeker began its final descent toward the sanctuary, its advanced systems adapting to Earth's gravity and atmosphere. Through the quantum blast viewport, the vast African landscape spread out below them, and in the distance, the gleam of river systems where their subjects awaited. Maya checked her own safety equipment out of habit, then turned to address her thoroughly unsettled classmates. Welcome to Earth, everyone. Remember, no sudden movements. Maintain safe distances at all times, and whatever you do, don't assume that because something looks calm, it actually is. As the ship settled onto its landing pad, Maya could have sworn she heard the distant sound of hippopotamuses grunting in the river below. It sounded almost like laughter. The morning sun cast long shadows across the sanctuary's observation deck as Maya's classmates hovered nervously on their safety platforms. Her mother, Dr. Sarah Chen, stood at the briefing podium, trying not to smile at the extraordinary sight of various alien species wrapped in multiple layers of protective fields. The hippopotamus pod you'll be observing today is led by a female we call Bertha, Dr. Chen explained, bringing up a holographic display. She's approximately 25 years old and weighs just over 3,000 kilograms. Currently, she's quite protective of her territory, due to the presence of 3 calves in the pod. Protective? Kithrix's nanites swirled anxiously. Define protective in Earth terms. Last week, she flipped a reinforced research boat because it cast a shadow over her favorite sunning spot. Maya's father, Dr. James Chen, chimed in helpfully. Several hover platforms immediately adjusted their height settings to maximum. The group moved to the main observation area, a structure that combined traditional Earth architecture with borrowed alien technology. Through the quantum-reinforced windows, they could see the river system where Bertha's pod spent their days. The water's surface looked deceptively peaceful. "Now we'll begin with basic behavioral observations," Professor Xitel announced, their voice slightly higher pitched than usual. "Please activate your data collection arrays and—" A massive splash interrupted them as one of the hippopotamuses surfaced, water cascading off its bulk. The entire class jerked backward in unison, their protective fields humming with sudden energy spikes. Zix 427's crystalline form vibrated so intensely they nearly destabilized their hover platform. "That's just Harold," Maya explained calmly. "He's showing off because we have visitors." "Showing off." Professor Ulzera's bioluminescence flickered rapidly. That display generated more kinetic energy than some spacecraft launches. The observation continued, with the alien students gradually becoming more fascinated than terrified. They recorded detailed data about the hippo's social interactions, territorial displays, and physical capabilities. Maya noticed several of her classmates revising their previous assumptions about simple herbivorous species. Then came the moment that would later be dubbed the incident. One of the younger research assistants, new to the sanctuary, accidentally deployed a sensor drone too close to the water's edge. The reaction was immediate. Bertha's head snapped up, her massive jaws opening in a display that had several alien students violently recalculating their understanding of Earth's evolutionary processes. What followed was a demonstration of hippopotamus agility and power that no amount of video footage could have prepared them for. Bertha erupted from the water with shocking speed, her 3-ton bulk defying gravity as she charged toward the perceived threat. The drone, despite its advanced alien technology, never stood a chance. "Fascinating," Professor Xitel exclaimed, their scientific curiosity temporarily overriding their survival instincts. "The speed-to-mass ratio calculations should be impossible according to our previous models of Class 3 world evolution." "Professor," Maya suggested calmly, "perhaps we should continue those calculations from the reinforced upper observation deck." The next hour saw the class witnessing a full display of hippopotamus territorial behavior as Bertha's pod conducted a thorough patrol of their domain. The aliens watched in stunned silence as these supposedly simple herbivores demonstrated why they had earned their reputation as one of Africa's most dangerous species. "I don't understand." Kithrix's nanites had formed into what appeared to be a confused frown. "If Earth has creatures like this just living in your rivers, how did your species ever develop civilization?" Maya smiled. "We adapted. We learned. We developed tools and strategies. Every piece of technology humans have created came from the need to survive on a world where even the plant eaters could kill you. Earth taught us never to take anything for granted." As the day drew to a close, the Academy students gathered for one final observation session. The setting sun painted the river in gold, and the hippos had settled into their evening routine. It almost looked peaceful again, until Harold decided to demonstrate his jaw strength on a fallen tree trunk, causing several students to activate their emergency teleport beacons. Back aboard the Stellar Seeker, Professor Xitel called an emergency faculty meeting. Maya wasn't invited, but Kithrix's nanites had excellent infiltration capabilities and shared the highlights. Earth's classification was being immediately reviewed, with serious discussion of creating an entirely new category for planets that appeared deceptively safe but contained extreme evolutionary developments. A week later, back at the Academy, Maya found herself the center of unprecedented attention. Students from all years sought her out for insights about Earth's wildlife. The Xenobiology department had scheduled a full semester of lectures specifically about Earth's deceptively dangerous species, and the Galactic Classification Board had sent a formal request for a comprehensive review of all Earth's life forms. "I still can't believe your species considers these creatures moderately dangerous," Zix 427 commented during their quantum physics study session. Their crystalline form had finally stopped vibrating at the mention of hippopotamuses, though they still maintained a higher hover height than before. "Oh, that's because they're predictable," Maya replied casually. "Wait until I tell you about honey badgers. They're much smaller, but they have this interesting habit of—" The sound of multiple hover platforms engaging emergency protocols filled the library as Maya's classmates decided some knowledge was better left for another day. That evening, as Maya prepared her next presentation on Earth's surprisingly complex wildlife, she received a message from the Academy Board. Earth had been officially reclassified. It was no longer a Class 3 world. Instead, it had become the first planet in known space to receive the new classification, Deceptive Class Death World. Approach with extreme caution. Maya sent a quick message to her parents. Mission accomplished. By the way, how's Bertha enjoying the remains of that alien sensor drone? The Academy wants it back, but I told them it's probably best not to mention that to her. The response came with an attached video of Bertha using the drone's quantum alloy casing as a chew toy. Some lessons, Maya reflected, the galaxy had to learn the hard way. At least now they knew. Never underestimate anything from Earth, especially the harmless ones.